I'm Chris Bishop and the Entrepreneurial Edge is back. For more than a decade, CNBC Africa delved into the hearts and minds of the hardworking entrepreneurs of Africa. Now we are back with a new series that aims to analyze what makes an entrepreneur tick and how they made their money. We start the first episode in the hills of East Africa. Rwanda, the land of 1,000 hills that is home to many thousands of entrepreneurs. This is a country that has staked its future on the wealth and jobs entrepreneurs can create. Rwanda is growing rapidly to rise above the desolation of its tragic past. According to the World Bank, Rwanda's economy grew an average of 7.5% between 2007 and 2017, a growth rate that is the envy of many economies. A portion of this growth is thanks to entrepreneurs who start small and think big. One of them is 29-year-old Matthew Rugamba, a fashion designer in the capital Kigali. He studied international relations in the United States, but came home to found this business that supports 50 jobs and turns out around 300 garments a month. He founded this business in 2013. It took him just one day to register back then. A sign of Rwanda's welcome for entrepreneurs is that 6 years on, you can register a business in Rwanda in just over an hour. One of the biggest problems he faces is the cost of exporting. Often the cost of shipping can be more than the value of the item itself. Overcoming this is part of his plan to treble turnover to $300,000 in the next 5 years. He spoke to my colleague in Kigali, Fiona Matoni.
The major challenges that I encountered, you always deal with things like capital to start the business, hiring. Those things are always issues. But I think one of the biggest issues I faced that affected everything else was the perception of the of fashion and design. One perception was that it was for people who have failed in school. Like, you failed to be a lawyer, you failed to be a doctor, you failed to do all these things. That was number one. Number two was that especially if you're locally based, that you can't do high-end garments or products. That was another perception. So someone is willing to pay a lot more for a shirt that comes outside of Rwanda than one that is made locally. And so that was very limiting. And that perception is not just with the customers, it's with other businesses. The first time I went to try and get a POS machine at the bank I was using at the time, they told me that the only way they would give me the POS machine is if I paid about 35,000 rent, which 35,000 around that time was approximately $50. So I'd have to pay rent per month plus 3.5% on each transaction. So I think that that's absolutely ridiculous, especially if I am putting money into the bank. So I kept pressing them about it, and then eventually they mentioned that we don't think businesses like yours can make money. So there was so many issues regarding the perception of the industry, and just that perception limits everything else. You can't charge a fair wage for your you can't charge a fair price for your products. That means you can't pay the workers well enough, and that means the whole ecosystem, from models to tailors to other suppliers, it affects everything. And so one of my primary goals was to make sure that the perception of the industry changed.
Yeah, and how many years back was it when you started?
So I have two start dates. The first start date when I came up with the idea was in August 2011. The second start date is September 2013, when I actually registered it as a business, and I said, I'm done with school. I am going to start developing this as an actual business.
So when you look at the industry, would you say that at that time you had mentors? At that time, were there hubs where you could go with the people with the same business ideas, discuss?
It was very difficult. There was nothing that I could say was a mirror of what I wanted my business to be. There were incubators that were coming up. I actually took part in the Educat. There was an NGO called Educat that worked to develop entrepreneurs, but still that was very early days. But now you have a lot more Incubators, you have institutions like Inkomoko that I've actually worked with closely over years that understand the local context, and they help develop businesses. And I think that we're slowly becoming better at that.
And how easy or how hard was it for you to start a business here in Rwanda? Registering it, the whole process, how was it?
The registration process was actually very streamlined. It was very easy to do. You know, you didn't have, when you hear stories of people setting up businesses in different parts of the world, you hear how many people they have to bribe to actually get a document. So it was really straightforward and very simple to do. I think that the challenge became actually doing business, you know, getting a storefront, doing retail, dealing with the banks, you know, finding customers. And so doing these things at, you know, you want, I think what would be great and what I'm trying to help grow is having people start from testing their ideas at a very low level. You know, if another designer starts up today, I would tell them don't go and get a store. We were forced to get stores because there was no other way you could sell the products. You try to sell in another store, they don't give the customer service that you want. You try there was no online platforms. But now, if a teenager, if someone just decided to start in the industry today, I would say number one, there's online platforms. There's Hey developing delivery services for different companies here. There's Jumia if you really wanted to use that route. So there's the ways entrepreneurs can start and test an idea first before they have to go out and get a full store. Yeah,
you've touched on we need to export more. Now, when you look at the opportunities, the partnerships that Rwanda is having with other countries, and how are they opening up doors for designers here in Rwanda?
Right now, we're working with the International Center for Trade, and they're helping develop on e-commerce solutions. They've brought together a number of partners, Ministry of Trade, DHL, EcoBank, to help put Rwandan entrepreneurs' products online. There are many roadblocks for us to sell online internationally. The key ones are logistics and payment services. So hopefully this new platform that is being created by the ICT will help with all of this, yes.
Yeah, and would you say when you look at your market here in Rwanda, would you say that it's local, or are you targeting also diaspora as well as foreigners? What's your market?
Initially, when I started the brand, it was mainly tourists and members of diaspora. But for a brand to be sustainable, you need to have the local market buying into it. So I started to have a specific marketing strategy to the local market, and by trying to understand their shopping preferences. Why do they order things from outside? Why don't they like to wear things that are locally made? I started to look at what men wear for weddings, and I realized quite a number of them, even though I make suits, quite a number of them don't want to wear suits for gusabas, for weddings. So coming up with alternatives, shirts that are much lighter, that are more comfortable for them, but are still quite smart. I think that by understanding why people do certain things, we've been able to increase our local sales.
And looking back, since you started till now where you are today, what would you say are some of your major milestones?
I would say that personally, I would always point to the suit that we did for Peter Nyong'o for the Black Panther premiere, and I think it was very important for both myself and the brand, because it was a sign of validation. It showed quite a number of people that we can do high quality outfits I think there's always been a question of quality in regards to locally made clothing, and quality and originality. I think that those are things that people have always expressed that are issues with our local industry.
And would you say that that is a conversation that people have mostly? Because when you hear fashion, mostly people hear model, designers, and they don't really know what other things, what other sectors also hold up and play a key role in this for the fashion industry to grow. So do you think that people actually know what is needed?
I don't think that people know what is needed in our fashion industry, and I think that as Collective RW, we, especially during our fashion weeks, we try to have talks and sessions that show the potential of the local fashion industry and show how many people can take part. So personally, even when I work one-on-one with people in the creative industry, if I see a graphic designer, I ask them, you know what, I like the way you work, I like your aesthetic. Have you ever tried doing textile design?
How profitable is owning a fashion house?
It isn't yet. It isn't significantly profitable yet because of many things that I've listed. And I think that once we have at least just even the export part, it changes a lot. I think that because our market is small, you have to do variations of products because the customer base is quite small. So instead of me ordering 300 meters to make one specific type of shirt, to make hundreds of the same shirt, I have to, order 30 meters of different types so that I have variation in the store, so that when my clients come in, they're not walking into parties with the exact same shirt.
And when you look at opportunities, Rwanda now being MICE focused, and also knowing that next year the Dubai Expo is happening here in Rwanda, what are some of the opportunities are you looking at? How are you leveraging on these conferences that are coming, the summits that are coming, and the opening up of the country?
I think that the opening up of the country is very good. I think that one thing that I've been doing is making sure, having targeted social media campaigns around the time of the conferences, so when people land, they know what they're looking for. But I definitely think that I need to have a more deliberate strategy for conferences. There's a lot more to be done. Whether it is setting up booths at the different venues, or having flyers strategically placed in different hotels, but those are all partnerships that we're looking at seeing how can we put these together.
Rugamba intends to exhibit in Dubai in November in search of new partners and new capital. Meanwhile, Dubai has already made its way to Rwanda. Stay tuned for the second half of the Entrepreneurial Edge.